Well, I'm drinking coffee, as I am Italian again. This is espresso. It is already cold, so it's a bit different than having a hot espresso, but it's still okay. So nice. My name is Carine Chisu. I'm based in Brussels, and I am a founder and owner of my own company, in which I am doing educational innovation, training in education, higher education, as well as in corporates in Brussels and all over Europe, I would say, and beyond that. I submitted the inspiring idea about being entrepreneurial, and then looking at initiatives against teacher and student suffering in online learning. And the reason why I did that is because I have witnessed, as we all have, that online learning has gone tremendously successfully, and there is a lot of demand. But then it is not just about putting an offline learning experience onto the online world. It is more than that, if you don't want to have the suffering from the teacher's part and from the student's part. But we'll have the opportunity to talk about this. Whether it is online or offline doesn't really matter in a way. It's more about what makes a learning experience positive. And to me, it is about having a connection between the person who facilitates the learning, and I really use that word because it is about making learning more easy for the learner. So we as teachers are not teaching knowledge anymore, or not only teaching knowledge anymore. It's really about facilitating the learner's capacity of learning, and so making learning more easy. And in online learning, it seems as if the connection between the learner and the facilitator of the learning is more difficult to get. And that is all about how to tackle this. So it's more like being aware that it is a different thing. It's not the same. You and I are not in the same room. Although we are not in the same room, we can say whether we have a good contact or not a good contact, and we can both work towards that, towards having a good contact. So it is work, as is teaching in the classroom is working. Teaching online is also working. It's different, but it's not impossible. So student-centered learning, to me, is really about that facilitating the learning. If you consider yourself as a facilitator of your students' learning, then the only way to do that is by being student-centered. If your students' learning is the main thing happening, then everything you do is in order to make this learning happening, and a major learning happening. So I would say, by definition, if you think you are a facilitator of learning, then you are student-centered. Against that, I would say we can still have people who consider themselves as transmitting knowledge. And that is fine in a way, and for certain subjects, certainly, you need to do that. That's also part of the job of a teacher. But there are ways of doing that could be in balance between facilitating the learning and transmitting the knowledge, and not just the one or just the other. I really think that in general, solutions are found when you have a balance between different elements. And here, the balance would be between being student-centered and only student-centered, and only knowledge-centered or curriculum-centered. And the new approach, I think, would be that the facilitator of the learning would keep the learning process in mind and not just the knowledge or not just the student. The student, let's say that you are too much student-centered and you adapt completely to the student. You wouldn't be happy with the outcome on the knowledge side. If you are completely centered on the knowledge side, but you also care for the learning, maybe you wouldn't be happy with how the student has been learning. So it's really about having these two elements in balance, one to another. To me, the curriculum is just the subject. What do I need to teach? And then the facilitation of learning is how am I going to teach that? And if these two things are in balance, then you have a perfect learning experience, whether it's online or offline. I think where the entrepreneurial thinking comes in is about thinking about the risks. When an entrepreneur thinks, it is always about how much risk am I willing to take and how much risk am I not willing to take. If we bring this into the education, let's say the teacher or the facilitator can decide this is a risk I am willing to take, like the student doesn't get the complete subject or the total arguments that I want to tell. Or another risk might be being too student-centered. My class is going off rail. So it's really about having these extremes in risks being balanced. On the other side, and that is an aspect we cannot forget about, is the risk the learner also takes. Because to us, it might be normal. You see my background, okay, it's a rather neutral background, but it is my house. And I see your office, and I guess it's your home office as well. So, and we are fine with showing this to one another. For younger people, the pressure of the group is still more important. So sometimes it's also not just because they have technological problems, or because they are lazy, or because they are not motivated, whatever, that they don't come on screen, for example. It can also be because they feel there is too much pressure from their peers. I'm not using this as an excuse, but I'm just saying that the learner is also taking risks online, because we also come into their homes or into their backgrounds, even digital backgrounds that they choose. There is no neutral background. So we come into their worlds, and maybe they are not willing to take that kind of risk. Sometimes we need them to take risks so that we can take risks as well. I think if you look at the three purposes or objectives or goals of E³UDRES, being education, students, and then the outside world, let's say, with the companies or the labor market as a goal, if this starts with the teachers, students will be more entrepreneurial, or at least entrepreneurial thinkers. And this is about entrepreneurship in the outside world, but also about intrapreneurship. And that is something all companies are interested in today. So this is where it has to start, with the teachers going into that entrepreneurial thinking, giving it to the students, and then the students living it, exploring it in their work, in their labor, in their jobs, wherever they are in the future. So that's what I think it would bring to E³UDRES, as this project is about having also a link with the outside world and making more jobs possible and so on. So if people are more aware, more conscious, and take more risks and see more opportunities, this is going to have impact on the region around every university and every school that is part of the E³UDRES project.